welcome and thank you both for being part of this. It's really going to be an exciting thing to share this in the middle of September. We have a date set. It's going to be live on a Wednesday at 11:30 for our friends of the gallery and students. So we're really interested to hear what you guys have to say about art making and process and what you've been up to the last 6 months during this sort of down period. So maybe Ashley, you want to start with what you've been working on? And
Sure. Well, actually during this period, I found that it's really difficult to make things. And I know that's kind of a disappointing answer because most people are thinking this time is a great time to get things done and really explore. But I actually gotten into learning new skills. So I'm mostly, when I work in knit pieces. I'm expanding outwards. So I'm learning weaving, I'm learning crochet, I'm learning the sewing machine and how to sew. And just getting that breadth of experience without having, the watchful eye of, getting things done, putting it out on Instagram, or social media. It's nice. It's like a respite from society in a way. It's not a good time, but I'm getting that time to actually work without being judged for what I'm making.
you find that kind of similar, Brian, or what, have you had more time to work or less time or?
Yeah, I kind of, like there's definitely some similarities from what Ashley was saying. I think it almost, I feel a little bit like, well, I guess in the beginning, I felt like a little bit of relief because I really like value my studio time in the art making. And then I know it's like, part of being an artist is to go to shows and like, keep informed and, the conversation up. But that's something like, it takes a lot out of me. And sometimes it affects my work in a way, like, I mean, it doesn't necessarily affect the work that I make, but it affects my, like psychology in my, like I get a little bit like insecure or like just knocked off my game a little bit. So I felt like for the beginning of this, like very focused on just some work that I always make work that I want to make. Like I never make work for like a particular gallery, but sometimes there's like size requirements, things like that. And I just allowed myself this time to make the work that, I really wanted to make. I had these large stretchers hanging around in my studio that I just like, I stretched them and made some of the bigger work that I made in a few years. So that was really good, just to have that space and time for experimentation.
Yeah. What's sort of been possibly like the biggest hurdle? I mean, is it ordering stuff, getting around? Like how have you managed to get through this period where you haven't been able to go to exhibitions, or maybe you can't, get the supplies you need, or have there been any things that have been a roadblock? Either of you.
Well, for me, a lot of my supplies are easily accessible online. So that's not really an issue for me. Postage, or well, not postage, but like time has increased. So now I have to wait longer for things to get here.
Yeah.
That's pretty normal though for this. I miss going out to exhibitions. That was my time. It's like kind of like my me time. So I get inspired from going out to those exhibitions and I miss it so much. Just being able to go out to a museum it's not accessible anymore. I know a lot of galleries are open, but with restrictions. So it's hard. I like just being able to go out every weekend to LA and go see exhibits that are up, but
Yeah.
it's all,
Check in with people in
yeah,
person.
it's online now.
Yeah, it's not the same.
Yeah.
I live out in Avalon on Catalina Island, and it's one of those things. I kind of got prepped for this because if I needed something, I can't just go to the store and get it. You got to get on a boat and drive over and get it, or you order it and you have to wait a couple of days. So there is that sense of frustration. Like I really want to get this done, but I got to wait 3 days for this thing to get here. So
Yeah.
it's kind of, it primed me for being used to delays and things like that.
Yeah.
Did
That
you
was,
guys have any exhibitions that got canceled other than the one that we were in at Coastline? Were there anything that got pushed back or postponed, or did it switch to virtual?
no, not for me.
No.
Just this. I was lucky.
Yeah.
Yeah, I think, well, one of my, like I had a show up when this first started, and it just, yeah, it kind of, like no one got to see it really.
Yeah.
So
But you had an opening reception, or was it scheduled like a closing reception, or?
I think there actually was an opening, but then like, there was no viewing it after the opening. And I actually haven't been able to get my work back from it because,
Stuck.
yeah, it was impossible, and everything shut down.
Yeah. So, this is a community college gallery, and we try to focus on the community, obviously, but I always like to bring in people from outside of our community because it just enriches the larger conversation.
Hmm.
Um, if we had this opportunity to have an actual physical art opening, ideally we'd have community members and students interacting and engaging with your art. And what's the one thing that you're really looking for out of that the viewer when they approach your art? Like, is there not a message, but is there something you really hope and wish that they're getting out of this experience?
I mean, I think, well, for me, my work deals with like, kind of like the experiential.
Mhm.
Um, I use a lot of like materiality with my paint, like with different, I mix different materials in with my pigments and resins, and there's a lot of different textures. So seeing the work in person is like really important. So I'm looking for, like I really like when people physically come to see my work. Um, and that's why I make it the way I do, or part of the reason.
Yeah, it's one of those nice things, right? When someone maybe sees it on a computer screen and thinks one thing, and then they go see it, like, that's what that is, and like
Yeah.
kind of that surprise, like, no, I didn't, I thought that was something different. And so to
Yeah,
me,
Yeah,
absolutely.
nice.
It totally
definitely.
fits.
I mean, sorry. I feel sorry for cutting you off.
No?
I feel kind of vain because I feel like definitely my work, or well, most work, all work basically, you have to see it in person. But I feel like because my work is mostly faces, people like to connect that right next to the face. And I love to see in person the whoever it is connect with something you may not really think that they might connect with. um, I had some piece that had like glittery beads and like sequins and stuff, and I had this man who was like a veteran looking at one of my pieces, and he was really connecting with it and like looking at it, and you wouldn't think that he would connect with something so feminine, typically feminine, and he's like really staring at it. And I love those moments when someone connects with something you wouldn't really think they would connect with.
Yeah. Now, within the what you guys do in art, do you have a side gig or another thing that you participate in, or are you 100% just in the studio making art all the time?
I teach, so that's like really important to me, and I think just as important as the art making, like just having that social aspect, and being able to share in like of service in that way. Um, and it
What?
probably comes a little bit more natural to me to like teach.
Mhm.
Like make the art making thing is I'm definitely like a visual person and have always been making things my whole life, but the teaching is like a little bit more like, I feel a little bit more like my purpose, I guess.
Yeah.
So
Are you teaching at the university level?
yeah, well, since grad school, I've taught at LMU, Loyola Marymount in, where is it, in Westchester, I guess.
Yeah.
And then I teach at Santa Monica College, and like lately I've been just doing like a kind of workshop thing on Zoom,
Mm-hmm.
like since this whole thing has started. So, and that's how my life has kind of shifted, I guess, since the pandemic started. It's just things are on Zoom.
Yeah.
A lot of Zoom.
The online teaching's really hard.
Yeah.
It is. It's a lot more like more demanding. I always feel like it takes on me.
Yeah.
I feel like you're doing twice the work for the same amount of what like pay, you know.
Coastline, it's primarily online. That's 60% of what we do. So I've been doing online classes, mostly history and survey courses for the last 10 years. And it really, the first couple of years is really difficult because it's just so much work. But eventually you figure out that all the students have the same questions and usually the same responses to your questions. And so I have just series of responses that can be for one of 5 ways they answer the question every semester. And I just elaborate on those every year. So what started out as a paragraph is now like a page that responds to their answer. But so it gets easier. It just takes a lot of time.
Yeah.
But I definitely teaching like an actual studio course online.
Yeah.
That's different,
Yeah, it's definitely like, I find myself sometimes like becoming like Bob Ross in a way. And that can be tough. Like I'm always looking at the screen, looking at the painting and like making sure things are lined up.
Yeah. The one thing I found that is if you typed in like how to paint a vase, there are thousands and thousands of videos out there that exist for how to paint a vase.
Mm-hmm.
And I remember someone wanted to record them doing the vase. I'm thinking you're going to be one more of 1,000+ videos on painting a vase. Like you got to make your video even more interesting. So there's almost a challenge. Like how can you make it even better than what's already out there? It's a lot of work.
Exactly.
Special effects.
If you had a student in your class, or sorry, what are you doing? Same thing, Ashley?
I lost one of my jobs due to the pandemic. I was actually working at Orange Coast College in their photography department. I was helping them with that, with the photography equipment. That was kind of like a side thing I was only doing for maybe like a day or 2 a week.
Yeah.
What I do is I teach knitting to older adults through NOCE. That's our acronym, North Orange County Community College District, like continuing education.
Got it.
And then I also work for Arts Orange County. I'm a consultant and I help them compile their list of public artwork in Orange County. So doing a lot of things.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. If you had a student or someone that's kind of getting into this as a career, what's the best advice you could give them that would be encouraging, but not over the top, like, do it. Yeah, you're going to be amazing and famous. Like, what's some real good advice to ground someone? Yeah, go for it, Brian.
Oh, okay. Well, I guess the advice that I got, because I think that always works best, like passing it down. Someone told me, like, I think in undergrad, like 20 years ago, just like keep showing up. Like I think a lot of young artists, especially students, think it's like this kind of like romantic career path, and it's like, it's just that cliche in a way.
Mm-hmm.
But like this one professor was like, just show up and be consistent with your work, like any other job, if you want to make it a career. And like, you know, some of my colleagues that I look up to, or we just have conversations, it always comes back to that. Like, you know, I might not be the most talented, or like, you know, whatever that means, but my deal is I'm going to outwork everybody else.
Yeah.
But that's not my deal. Like, I like balance in my life.
Yeah.
But I think like as much as you can have a studio schedule, the better.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's definitely really great advice. Um, Advice that I received that I also think is really good to pass on. I was told just always make artwork that you know you want to see out in the world and what you enjoy making, because actually I remember it was my graduate professor David Pagel who said this. He said nobody's going to enjoy looking at artwork that you didn't like making. It's just going to be a chore. So
Yeah.
you have to make artwork that you want to see.
Yeah.
And definitely showing up and putting the work in. Number one, I think.
It was always interesting watching people chasing trends and
Yeah.
you know, not factoring how long it takes to get something down. If oh, this is what people like, and then you get in the studio and start making it, by the time you figure it out, people don't like it anymore.
Yeah.
It was always better just to do what you like to do it well, and the trend eventually is going to hit you, and you're right there. You're not chasing it, and then it's going to go away, and it'll come back. It's always like that.
Yeah.
But you have to work to meet that. So.
Yeah, I definitely believe that too.
Okay.
And the whole trend, like I love following that, because it's like, you know, it's like a game. Like,
Yeah. Well, some good advice was
who's
if you want to look at something, you know, don't look at art magazines, look at fashion magazines, because that's where the color is going to come from. That's where the patterns are going to come from. And then by the time it hits Target, you've already been in the studio for 2 years working out these things. And then people kind of like, wow, this is so on. You're spot on with the colors and stuff. Like, yeah, you know, that's what you do. So I asked everyone else, we have had 3 other interviews, and I asked everyone if they had an opportunity to have dinner with an artist. They can be alive or dead. You can even invite 2 and have an alive one and bring in a dead one, just to hear or see the conversation. Who would they be, and what would you serve on the menu?
Ah,
Oh my gosh.
that's a complicated question.
It can be, yeah. Especially giving it with no time to think about it.
Yeah. Who would I pick?
My first instinct was like Gerhard Richter, just because he's my hero.
Yeah.
But and like, I don't know much German, so well, he knows English fairly well, so I guess we could have a good conversation.
Yeah.
And then Peter Doig, I guess.
Okay.
I wouldn't want to like do like the, you know, like those heavy hitters. I feel like some of these, well, I mean, Gerhard Richter's. I hope I didn't disrespect Gerhard Richter or Peter Doig. They're both like amazingly successful. But I feel like Richter has like a pretty great sense of humor from like the things that I've seen with him, like the interviews and everything.
Yeah.
And Peter Doig seems really low key, and
when I lived in Chicago, across from this, I think it was the Hyatt. They were working on it while I was there, and they opened up the hotel. I went into the lobby, and there was a Richter on the wall.
Nice.
And if you're looking at it, it was beautiful. And then he turned around, and there was a mirror like 3 times the size of the Richter. I might be off, but then you got to see yourself in the painting, and it was really kind of, whenever I brought people in from out of town, I take them there to have this experience, because it was almost like an installation without being an installation.
Yeah, it like recontextualizes the experience, I guess.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Cool.
What would you have for the menu?
Oh my gosh.
Schnitzel?
Mushrooms.
There you go.
A bunch of mushrooms.
Perfect.
Risotto.
Mushroom risotto. Yeah.
Yes, I'm like plant-based here, so
Yeah,
I'm not cooking, meat for
that's
them.
perfect.
You know, if I could have, I'm going to be cliche and pick Frida Kahlo because she's dead and I can't talk to her so now, and she has no like, well, she might have some on video interviews, but very limited, hard to find. And then I'd also choose Mike Kelly because he's one of my inspirations as well. And those two together would be pretty interesting, I think, with the fantasy element
Yeah.
of Frida Kahlo. And then Mike Kelly also has his own fantasy.
Yeah.
So you'd see how they'd play off of each other, maybe. Or maybe they hate each other. Who knows? And I think I'd serve like Thanksgiving dinner because it's such an American thing.
Yeah.
It would be, it's one of those things that kind of inspires more than what it actually, the food actually is. So it's about family and tradition. And that would be interesting to see like somebody's take on it. Like Frida Kahlo, who wouldn't even be from America. She would find that interesting probably. And Mike Kelly's probably would find it kind of funny in a satirical way.
Yeah. I had was studying abroad in Italy years ago, and this Italian restaurant that we kind of befriended with this group of students, they made us Thanksgiving dinner, but they used chickens and stuff. They didn't have the turkey, but they did a really good job. Like someone studied and they tried their best with the ingredients they had to create this sense and feeling that you're having this sort of harvest kind of festival. It was nice. It was very a good experience.
Cool that they did that for you.
Yeah.
It's always interesting to see like a foreign country perspective on Thanksgiving.
Yeah. I think everyone has it. Really, it's a harvest festival.
Yeah.
Oktoberfest is the same thing, just with more beer. I mean, it's celebrating that you've brought in all the grain and now let's take part. So,
Yeah.
okay. Well, hello everyone. Thanks for joining us. We're very fortunate here to have one of the artists from the exhibition, and she's going to tell us all about the things that she's been working on and what lies for her in the future. And let's welcome Zuli to the conversation.
Hi, David. Thank you for having me. Do you want me to say a little bit about myself?
Yeah, maybe say a little bit about yourself. Talk about maybe how you just finished up the program at UNLV, and maybe some of the future, I guess it's a adventure you're going to be on.
Yeah.
And, let's go from there.
Okay. My name is Suli. I just recently graduated from UNLV. I finished the BFA program. I will be starting the MFA program in London next year. I had to refer my acceptance for a couple different reasons, primarily the coronavirus situation that's affecting a lot of us, but that will be at Goldsmiths next fall. My work is primarily focused on representational. I wouldn't say I'm prone to a specific medium, although my favorite is painting and it's kind of what I'm known for, but I do express and play with representation through sculpture and drawing and printmaking as well.
How long have you been painting? Was this something you picked up when you were younger, or how did you come across it?
I picked up art from a very, very young age. Like kindergarten young, because my teacher just kind of, I guess, noticed that I was very passionate about it and interested in it. And my mom really encouraged that throughout my growing up experience. But that was mostly drawing. I didn't actually pick up painting until high school at Las Vegas Academy. And that's kind of when I decided to become an artist, because that wasn't the experience that I had where I really fell in love with painting.
So you just finished up your career at UNLV. You got your BFA, and you had this opportunity usually to have an exhibition, and everyone shows up and everyone's there in the gallery looking at your work, and they kind of switched things up, and you had to create this this online version. I see you got your cat there. Hopefully mine doesn't jump in as well. But you know, how did that feel that you've kind of worked up to this moment, and then this, usually, you know, you work for years on the project and then have a show and everyone comes in and says, congratulations, maybe you sell something. Was it different to have this video presentation, or did you get the feedback that you were hoping, or are you kind of delaying that and going to do it a little bit later?
It's been a very mixed experience because, like you said, well, so the program at UNLV is a little bit different from most BFA programs. Usually with a BFA, you start from the first year, and it's sort of a 4-year program. At UNLV, you do your BA first, and then you apply for a BFA on your last year, and the BFA program is 1 year of like intensive feedback, a lot of making, of course. And at the end of the program, we have an exhibition. And so that was kind of what we were working up towards for the entire year. And it just so happened that the exhibition and the lectures that we were supposed to have couldn't happen in person because of COVID, right? So it was a complete shift to recording ourselves, giving a lecture of our work, and just sort of taking photographs for everything, learning to work with some new programs online to record our voices and whatnot. It was different. I wouldn't say it was more challenging, but I would say that it was challenging in a very different way.
Was there, out of the body of work you made, was there one specific piece you were really looking forward to getting feedback from the public on? Maybe not your faculty and your student body, but the general population of people that would come and see it? Like, what piece was that?
So again, throughout that year, we're working on a lot of pieces, and I did get the chance to show some of those pieces at different exhibitions throughout. Okay. But the really new work that I had made, I guess within the last couple of months, was what I was looking forward to showing. And it's a piece called Toaster Oven. And the reason why I was looking forward to showing this piece is because it was such a vast shift from the work that I was making before, which was primarily 2D, and this was a 3D sculptural piece. So the piece is still representational. It's a sculpture of a toaster. Well, it's a toaster oven that I painted, and I guess it would be a found object, and then sort of sculpting on top of it of female genitalia. So you have breasts on top and a vulva on the door. And it's a piece that really sought to capture a feeling that I've experienced of being sexualized, especially living in Las Vegas, where, you know, you go out to the strip and you see giant trucks with photographs of like naked women, you know, every 5 minutes. But also just as a woman, just kind of, and especially I guess as a Peruvian woman or a Latinx woman, having always to feel like I need to protect myself because I can't walk down the street without somebody, without the risk of somebody saying something that is extremely inappropriate or offensive or sexualizing in some way.
So as you're going through school, and there must be certain artists that you were inspired by that really kind of helped. Maybe you take a little bit from this one, a little bit from that one, and you piece this all together. Who would have been maybe one or two of those artists that you were really inspired by while working through the last part of your program?
Yeah, I guess two of the main ones would be Barkley Hendricks and Amy Sherald. And Barkley Hendricks specifically sort of helped me to see the potential of self-portraiture, because he has done a lot of pieces where he uses his own body to speak about issues that affect the Black male.
Mm-hmm.
And Amy Sherald, I'm sure you're familiar with her work. She did the portrait of Michelle Obama.
Mm-hmm.
And she's just incredibly talented, of course, but she really allowed me to realize very early on, when I was just sort of getting my feet wet, that I could make a living and devote my career to portraiture.
Mm-hmm. Okay. I'm not too familiar with Goldsmith College. Can you say a little bit more about that? Like what's the program like? Is it a normal MFA program, or is it structured a bit differently than a US program?
Yeah, it's a little bit different. I guess the similarities is that it is an MFA program as opposed to an MA. And I think they do that in order to make the degree a little bit more international, I guess, so that it's not as limited as an MA. Yeah. Because typically an MA means that you can't teach here or stuff like that. There's more limitations in the US for that. But the program is, it's not specific to a medium. So it's, any medium. It's a fine arts program. I had the opportunity to go there and see some of the spaces that the students are working in, meet some of the faculty, which is really amazing. They are a pretty well-established program. They are well known for the Young British Artist movement that came out of that school.
It's pretty well known.
Yeah, yeah. So, I mean, that was definitely one of the contributing factors to me wanting to go there. But also it's well known for artists who are trying to make some kind of social impact. And that's what I would like to do with my work, what I'm interested in. So I figure I'm going to look into a school that's going to help me do that in the best way that I can.
That's pretty interesting. I remember when I transitioned from undergrad to grad, I was painting strictly hard-edged abstraction. And by the time I got through grad school, I was sewing quilts and painting stories about birds. And I'm like, what? How did this happen? But,
it changes
3 years of just talking and working and talking, it's amazing. I've worked very hard to get back to the hard-edged stuff, but I still have that tactile fabric aspect that I use in my work that I got from all the fabrics I was using to sew.
Yeah.
Well, so Coastline is a community college, and we have a lot of people starting their careers out or coming back to start a new career. What's the best advice you can give to a student that, let's say, mid-20s, they've decided to take this avenue of either fine arts or design or the creative arts in general? Is there some sort of experience or something you can share to help those students out?
Yeah, the best advice that I can give is getting involved. Mm-hmm. That has been the greatest sort of impact, that has had the greatest impact on my career. I started out volunteering at the Marjorie Barrick Museum at UNLV, meeting a lot of the artists, having exhibitions. Just jump in wherever you can, get involved with the community. And so that would be advice number one. Advice number two, in terms of actually the work, actually creating, I would say make the work that is yours. And that's been the best advice that I've gotten, is being true to yourself and your message, because you're going to be getting a lot of feedback throughout, your career, your education. And that doesn't mean don't listen to the feedback you're receiving, but listen and sort of pick and see what actually connects with your message and make an educated change, or continue to do what you're doing, whatever it is.
Yeah. In a similar sense, I would always say that to students as well. It's show wherever you can. It doesn't matter where it is, because that will lead to your next show.
Yeah.
And you don't have to put on your resume that you showed at the coffee shop. Eventually,
people know. Yeah.
Yeah, you can take that off. And the other thing was that if you could control that space, like you have the ability to be the curator of that little space, then you have some leverage where maybe someone else controls a little space, and then you're showing each other. And then you start building this community of people that you all elevate up together, because you're working not as a team, but as a, a group of friends that are all seeing each other.
You're supporting each other. Yeah.
Well, you kind of even say like the young British artists, in a way, they were a pretty tight-knit group. They saw them all sort of elevate at the same time. And maybe at the time, they weren't being written about, but they're sure being written about, today, and for the last couple of decades at least. But well, that's really exciting. So who knows, in 15 years, you're out of school and people are going to start writing about what you're doing while you're in school. It seems kind of a wild adventure to be on.
Wild ride, yeah.
Okay.
Very excited also just for the opportunity to travel again. As you know, I studied abroad in Italy for a little while, for a semester, and to get the chance now to go back and experience that for 2 years in London. Yeah. Really looking forward to it.
That'll be really nice. So I have one last question. I asked most everyone that participated in this lecture so far. You get to have dinner with any artist, alive or dead.
Okay.
Who is it and what's on the menu?
Oh gosh. Okay. Alive or dead? This might sound a little bit cliche, but Frida Kahlo.
Yeah.
Because of, that woman experienced so much. Yeah. And a lot of it was very painful. And she overcame that, and she managed to continue making work throughout those very dark experiences. And as a fairly young person, I'm starting to sort of get a feel for some of those difficult experiences in life, and just getting advice on how to take those experiences and involve them with your work, and really find meaning and create meaning out of them.
Yeah. And what's on the menu?
Oh, what are we eating?
Yeah.
I thought you meant what's on the menu as in what are we talking about?
Well, both, yeah.
What are we eating? Well, she's Mexican, so maybe pozole.
That's good.
Yeah.
Excellent. Okay. Well, thank you so much for participating in this, and